The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, ruler of all things in heaven and earth, hear our prayers for this parish family of St. Peter's. Strengthen the faithful, arouse the careless, and restore the penitent. Grant us all things necessary for our common life, and bring us all to be of one heart and mind within your holy church, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Good morning. It's great to see you all. Obviously, please continue to eat your breakfast and go back for more. I want to take just a moment to introduce what you're going to hear, introduce what you're going to hear more about in just a few minutes. Claire O'Brien is here this morning as our senior warden, and for the last several months, the vestry and I have been in have had a lot of conversation about the future of St. Peter's, about direction, about planning, about our need to develop some a vision for where we feel like we want to go, and that where God might be leading us to go. And so we have now formalized that process. A group of people have come together to help craft a vision and a plan in consultation with a consultant who is connected to an organization known as the Center for Healthy Churches. So Jeannie Davis and Drew Gulick are the chairs of this group. This group is being commissioned today at both services, and I'm going to let Jeannie say a little bit more about the work that they have been asked to do, and then Jane Gilbert is going to lead us in a conversation to help describe that work and about how all of us can be part of it.
Thanks, David. First of all, I'm so proud of all of us for getting here so early this morning with our time change. So the Strategic Vision Planning Committee is the name of the committee, but we love the theme, the stories we tell. If you've been coming, many of you in this room have been coming to our speaker series. And so we're building on that because we want to hear your stories about when you came to St. Peter's, and we want to hear your vision for what you want to build on. It's such a great time in our church right now. We have the most optimistic feeling with David's ministry, with people back, trying to get more people back after the pandemic, and we just have a lot of good things going on, and this is what healthy churches do. When they're healthy, they keep planning their vision, they keep looking forward and ahead. And so if you were at the 8 o'clock, you've heard some of this, but if you're coming to 10:30, you'll see that I said Nathan because Nathan preached. Connor put together a really good postcard that will be in your bulletin, and it tells a little bit. And on the back, we have these sessions planned for people to come, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this morning, but I know Drew will mention it at 10:30. The sessions are only going to be an hour. So we want you to come, if you can, to all of them, because each one will have a different focus. And there's food at every one, there is babysitting, and our committee's trying to make them fun. And we'll be at tables like this, and you'll share with your table. And from the committee today, we have Dwayne is here, and Jane, and me. And Jane is going to lead us in this discussion today. So she put together some slides.
Good morning, and I echo it. Yeah, I'm not a morning person. Oh, and the man who knows the technology. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, and we do it as the stories we tell. Okay. There we go. All right. And just so you know, I think we said it this morning for those who were here at 8, and you'll get it at 10:30. Here's the whole committee. So Jeannie and Don Frank, Jimmy Grimmett, Drew, Whitney, Matt, and Dwayne. So we have a nice group, and we are working with David on this. And we're also working with a gentleman named Bill Wilson, who comes from the Center of Healthy Churches. So we have somebody to help us guide us through this. So we're happy to have that. And so how do you do strategic visioning? How do you do that, right? So how are we going to do this? Here's the practicality. We're going to do 3 congregational conversations. So we have this, and part of that is going to be, the first one is our discovery phase. Again, we're using that paradigm of discovery, dream, design, and destiny. All right, we're gonna talk about, first one's gonna be about our past, and that's what's on the card that Jeannie had. Again, thank you, Connor. Connor and I have a similar background. We used to call these hang tags. So here we are. So the first one's gonna be, and it's gonna be Palm Sunday. I just wanna be kind of a fun day to do that. We'll enjoy the liturgy of Palm Sunday, and then we're gonna do it after both services, so you'll be able to come and have breakfast like we do today. And if you're gonna be at the 10:30 service, we're gonna offer lunch. And we're gonna talk about our past, and we're gonna do something really fun with that. We'll talk about it in a minute. Then we're gonna do a second one a little bit later, about a month later, and we're gonna talk about where we are today, and then we're gonna talk about our future. So after we do that, and that takes about 90 to 120 days, that's about what we planned it for, then we're gonna dream, right? We're going to take all the information that you all have shared, we're gonna discern what that is, and we're gonna design some initiatives, and I love this phrase, God-sized dreams. What is God calling us to be and do, right? And then we're gonna come back to the congregation with that and get your all's input. And then the big hard part is gonna be the design and implementation. And unlike other times, again, here at St. Peter's, and how many organizations have you guys done strategic planning and like, okay, here's the plan, and then it sits on a shelf, right? It becomes an artifact. Well, this will not be an artifact. This will be our, as we said, our destiny, so that we are committing, and the vestry has committed to track what this group is doing. And I want to say that again. The vestry has made the commitment that they will hold this group accountable, and that they are accountable to the parish to make sure that we do implement this. And we're going to create SMART goals, since I may know what SMART goals are. It's part of my life. I live with SMART goals. But the idea is that they're specific. SMART's the acronym. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, right? So we know what the goals are. We know when we're going to get them done. We're going to know how to measure them. We know that we can do them, right? And that they're relevant to what our vision is. Okay. Okay, so here are the conversations. When dealing with the past, how did we get here? What is our congregational DNA? What are the core positives of our church? Those are things we're going to do. And we're going to do something fun. We're going to take over this wall over here and put up a timeline of St. Peter's. So we'll have some visuals for you. And it's kind of fun. And does anybody know how old we are? Anybody? Anybody guess how long have we been a parish?
18.
Yeah, well, the name St. Peter's first appeared in 1868 as a branch Sunday school of the cathedral, and we became an actual parish in 1872. So we are over 150 years old. Depending on which rector picks which date, we celebrate those differently throughout our past. But so that's a long time to be together. So what's in our DNA? And you'll be surprised there are some things in our DNA that we'll discover. And what are our core positives, all right? Then we're going to focus on the present. What is the current status? Where do we live? Who are our neighbors? What's our community? What is our ministry context moving forward? And then the future. What is our shared mission and vision as a church? Okay. And not unlike the hang tag, this is just a visual to let you know what we're doing. We are doing 2 on Palm Sunday just to work it around the services. The second one is a Saturday. And these will be hour 15 out to 90 minute there. And so Saturday we will bring a lovely breakfast to make it fun, and then we're doing a dinner. We'd love for you to come to all 3, because they're all different topics, but we tried to space them out in different days so that if Sunday doesn't work for you or Saturday doesn't work for you, you've got that option. So I think it's gonna be fun. And I will say, this was Drew's suggestion, so to make it interesting at the first one, for everybody who comes, you'll be entered into a raffle to win a reserved parking space in pew for the Easter services. So it's very timely. It'll be good. You'll get it the next. You get a prize. You get to use the next week. So.
Is that sunrise service?
I don't know that you need one for the sunrise service, but if you'd like it. we'll give away 2, so the first person's drawn will pick whether they want 9 or 11. And we'll try to have interesting food and again childcare. So for those who have little ones, we've got something here to do. So I think that I'd like to open it up to questions. That's a quick overview of this, and I think Jeannie, Dwayne just goes play away. He'll be back.
Yes.
So Jeannie, Dwayne, and I, and people that are can certainly help from a investor standpoint, are here to answer questions. Does anybody have any questions? And I think, and Connor has a microphone, so we can pass that around. Ask us anything. What's the fastest way now?
What's the last time this church has done something like this? What's the last time this church has done something like this?
That's a great question. We've done elements of it when we, the last two rector searches, we did do discovery and discernment as part of that. In fact, the rector search previous to David, we did a history day where we had church history with some conversations. And I might, actually, Dwayne, I'm gonna have, or you can.
I'm gonna pass it to Dwayne, but we also, well, I was gonna, are you gonna tell about lift us to, we did lift us?
That's you.
Yeah, we did lift us to the joy divine, you might remember that, it was about 7 years ago where we had listening conversations, and but that was more geared toward a financial goal of raising money to do the undercrop that we now enjoy, and all the flexibility we have from that project is amazing for all our programs. This is more geared, it's not geared that way. And then all of the information that Dwayne's gonna talk about from the rector search, all of that is, we have it, and we're gonna build on that.
Yeah, so many of you remember the holy conversations that we were trying to have right after COVID shut everyone down. We had them in the garden, we had them outside at people's houses, and it's very similar to the process we did for that. But that was really in an effort to design our parish profile, to tell the people that were interested in our parish what we're about, what we hope for, what we dream, and what we're looking for. So this is the first time that we'll be doing that similar work, particularly focused on what is our corporate future? What do we want to do as a church moving forward that doesn't have an end goal of raising money or finding a director? It's finding our future mission. So it's exciting work. And you know, Jeannie and I did not get to do much of this kind of work when we were on vestry. We were getting everybody through the pandemic and a rector search and all of that. So it's really exciting to be a part of this work where we're really dreaming about what St. Peter's can be. So thank you.
And we also did, when Luke first came, we did a 5-year looking forward plans. And the first one, we sort of revised the things like the bulletin and sort of added our breakfast on Sunday mornings and things like that. And the second plan was more about sort of the physical plan. So those are the last two times. And obviously in the past we've done more. I was on a long range planning committee when I was like 24, so it was like, that was back shortly after the Earth's Crust School. So.
Dwayne referenced this a moment ago, but I want to just clarify that after having done this in a couple of other parishes where I've served, the intent of these is not geared to saying that we move from this into a capital campaign. This is not a feasibility, what's called a feasibility study to determine whether we have capacity to do this or do that or raise this amount of money. What this is designed to do is to create a vision and a plan for how we move forward with our overall ministry. Now sometimes what these result in is a desire to do something to increase space or to increase the capacity to carry out a particular ministry that might involve money. But that's not the intent. The intent is to develop a plan and a strategy for moving forward that helps then guide the work of the vestry, the work of our finance committee, the work of the various groups that come together to carry out the ministries of St. Peter's.
I had just a concrete question. I try to stay on top of my email inbox, so I saw this announcement. Are postcards going out to folks as well?
We're gonna do a letter, yes.
Yeah, a letter.
We're gonna have a Connor's gonna send a letter very soon, because there are a lot of people, and we wanna reach everybody, and it will have more information, so that's a good question.
Very good. Other questions? Thank you, Connor. With Connor running around, it sort of feels like, Phil Donahue and Oprah. Not in Word Povich, sorry. I think that we're not that kind of parish. Oh, Jerry Springer.
I want to just emphasize again how important the role, your role is in this. Again, after having experienced this in a couple of other places, having people gather around tables for food and for conversation that's structured conversation and getting input from people is so valuable and important. And Jane mentioned the timeline that will go up. That's also a really helpful way to learn things about your church that you didn't know. I mentioned this to our group the other night, and one of the parishes where I served, part of the point of the timeline is to help identify who you are and what it is that shapes you and marks you as a church. And one of the things that had marked that particular church were periods in which they had conflict. And so they had, and not long after I got there, I realized that they often brought these different times up when there was conflict. And when they were able to visualize that, then they were able to claim it and move on beyond it and develop a plan and a vision. Now, that's not where we are here. But again, being able to see who you are and what's in your DNA. For instance, this is a church that was involved in helping to plant a number of churches in the St. Louis area, other Episcopal churches. Some people know that, but some people don't know that. And that's an important part of who St. Peter's is. So there'll be a number of things and ways to help us all to say, oh, I didn't realize that about this church. And as Jane was asking earlier, maybe not everybody knows that we're over 150 years old. So again, I just really encourage you to come and be part of this and invite others to be part of it, not only for the purposes of doing this, but it's just a great way to be together and have a nice conversation.
And I might give you back to you, David, really fast. So we've been really impressed and very grateful for Bill Wilson from the Center for Healthy Churches, who's guiding us through this process. He's done it a lot, and David has worked with him before. You want to tell a little bit about Bill?
Claire, was there something that you wanted to say and follow up to me, and then I'm happy to say something more about Bill?
It was to that point. The vestry has been very, very intentional about engaging Bill Wilson, the Center for Healthy Churches. I reached out to several congregations who had engaged Bill Wilson before we decided to work with Bill. They had used Bill. We got very positive references. They had used Bill and then used him again in another period in their church. And so many people, one important factor for the vestry was objective, and many of the relationships that Bill had worked with in prior churches hadn't known Bill before they used him, and were really, really pleased with the results and the efficiency that he felt that they brought to the process. And then another important goal for the vestry that we've talked about, I know we had several conversations around this, was the measurable goals, the impact, the seeing the results of everything kind of coming together and just being able to say this is what we accomplished from this process. So again, we're really excited about Bill. David, do you want to say a little bit more?
So the Center for Healthy Churches was founded by Bill Wilson several years ago as a way to provide resource and support to churches who are in several ways, and one of which is to help churches plan and be strategic about crafting a vision. Bill is a very experienced member of the clergy in the Baptist tradition, and then has now a number of consultants who work with the Center for Healthy Churches across the country, with churches of various denominations, helping them do the type of thing that we're going to be doing in addition to some other services that they provide. I have had a chance to work with Bill before, and felt like that he would be a good fit here. And then as Claire mentioned, our vestry did their due diligence and came back and felt like that he would also be a good fit for St. Peter's. So I'm happy that you'll have a chance to get to know him and to meet him and learn a little bit more about One of the things that impresses me about the center is, and the work that they do, is that they have their finger on the pulse of the church, not just the Episcopal Church, but what's going on in churches all across the country. And some of it is rather dire. And some of the things that he talks about are kind of staggering. And Jane referenced some of that a while ago, with how many churches closed. But in addition to that, there's also they just have a lot of very helpful and good information about trends and about what they see that's happening in positive ways and in not so positive ways. And I think all of that's very healthy, especially right now when we've experienced so much change and flux in our culture and certainly in the church.
Other questions or thoughts? Oh, we've got Rich.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of the game a little bit, but does Bill Wilson and the Center for Healthy Churches have any general criteria or indicators upon which they evaluate what a healthy parish looks like and what an unhealthy one looks like? I mean, I guess an unhealthy one probably speaks for itself, but what are the criteria that they use for evaluating the health of the parish?
Yeah. Rich, give me just a second. I'm going to pull something up that hopefully I can find.
I'll give you some dancing time. While he dances for that. Yes, and as David said, he does across a bunch of different denominations, but I want to mention that Bill will be with us after we go through, we get to our destiny, right? After we get to our plan, he will be with us as we do implementation too. So that we're going to draw on his experience with that as well too. So it's nice to know that, yeah, that he understands, and yes, he does have, as David pulls it up, he certainly, the stories he tells us are really interesting, and he certainly knows all of the trending, and we didn't want to bore you this morning, and David's sort of done it at a previous time or two about where all the trends are. While he pulls it up, does anybody know what the largest growing spiritual denomination is in the country? Tim?
Mormons.
Actually, it's called the Nones, N-O-N-E-S. It's people who are no longer affiliated with any particular flavor or brand of religion. Yeah, sorry. But that comes from all kinds of studies, including one of the better known ones is the Pew Research. But and it has been a trend for quite some time. And so certainly that's concerning for any church in this country.
And I think to answer Rich's question, membership, right, is a huge indicator.
Enough time to dance?
Rich, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to find what I was looking for, but the bottom line is that what they say is that churches that have positive relationship with the leadership and are centered around a mission that everyone can connect to and feels a part of is what makes a healthy church. And so that's why they feel, and I feel, that it's so important to have a sense of mission and vision. In the book of Proverbs, it says that without vision, the people perish. And so again, what they focus on at the center is mission, vision, and leadership, clergy leadership and lay leadership having a close working relationship with each other. And they say that a little bit better than I just did, and I'll find it, but I just couldn't on the spot. Sorry. Is that helpful? Does that answer your question?
Sure, and I'm sure they must have some way of quantifying those things as well. All right.
Drop the mic.
Mike drop, great question.
Intentionally.
Well, they do, and I think obviously it's pretty easy. I mean, my experience, not only in other churches where I've served and other churches that I know about, is that often churches don't do what we're going to do. A lot of churches just kind of go, and I've always found it really helpful for me personally, as in my role, to be able to have some sense of where we're going and what we're going to do, and then invite others to be part of that. But also, it can't just be about what David wants to do as the rector, but also about what we want to do together. So that's one of the ways I think that they're able to quantify that, is that what's the relationship again between the lay and the clergy leadership, and then the relationship between the overall health of the congregation. One of the things that Bill talks about often is getting calls from churches who say, can you help us? Can you come? This is what we've got going on. And he says that that's one of the hardest parts of their work, is having to say to some churches, I'm sorry. If you had called us a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe, but at this point, what we can help you do is close with some sense of grace, and so that's hard.
And if I can add, there lots of examples of church, and this is not St. Peter's, but a lot of examples of churches. There's a church in Dallas that recognized millennials were not coming to church. Anybody surprised by that? Any millennial children? Right, and so they said, well, how do we become relevant to millennials? And they started doing a lot of outreach, a lot of Habitat for Humanity kind of projects. And the millennials, and they recruited them and they showed up in force. So if it had value to them and it had outreach, they came, and they didn't come except for maybe Christmas or Easter, but that was okay. And they participated and they pledged. So it's sort of understanding, that's an example where church said, what do we need to be and how do we need to be, and they focused on mission. There's a church here in St. Louis, it's a United Church of Christ, who has really, their basic focus and mission is on peace and justice, and they had an albatross of a building. This was the Peace United Church of Christ in Webster. This is another example. I'm not saying this is St. Peter's, but they dared to sit down and go, what's our future and what's our vision? And their vision was they wanted to focus on their peace and justice mission, and they didn't want to have to do a capital campaign. They needed about $5 million to upgrade the building. They actually sold their building, and they now rent space at Eden Seminary every Sunday for their services. And they took that money that they sold the land for and put that into their endowment, and they said, this is what our vision is, and we're going to focus on that. So that's another church who dared to go through this process. They didn't do it with Bill, but they did it another way. But that's the kind of thing where they know what their vision is, and they've committed to that and going forward. Again, I don't see that happening in St. Peter's, but it's the idea that these churches said, where do we go, and what does our vision look like for the future? And it can be different. I need to go upstairs and think too. Okay. Only bad thing is three choir members on the committee, and we all have to go upstairs. So I bear the wrath of the choir.
Jane, thank you so much. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Well, thank you all for listening to this and being part of it. Again, I hope you'll take this home with you and mark some things on your calendar. And most of all, I hope you'll come and be part of these sessions and share your thoughts and your ideas. God bless you.